Okay. Now, I think I told you on the phone that went through the process in my mind of whether to create some kind of plan. And no, I didn't. Anyway, I thought about what are the questions that need answers to. What kind of a plan might I follow? Could I create an outline that I should follow every time I talk to somebody?
Oh, I see. So a pattern, static pattern.
Yeah. And I ended up rejecting it, partly because I think I was too lazy to try to work it through. So anyway, what we have to do is, I need that watch because after an hour I have to turn that tape over. This is a 2-hour videotape, but that's only 1 hour on the side. What I've done and what I'd like to do now is to start out by talking about Mother and Dad. Harriet, for instance, is of the belief that some of the younger children perhaps actually spent more time with Mother and Dad than any. She can't, for instance, remember any time of actually sitting down and talking to either one of her parents, to speak of. Both of what you know from your own personal experience and what you may remember from what you've been told or read or whatever. And then we'll work into your own personal memories after we move to Cody and et cetera, and talk about, end up talking almost purely about you, okay?
I really and truly, I'm like Harriet, I really don't remember having spent very much time at all with Mother and Dad.
Mm-hmm.
Mother or Dad, that is. Very few real memories.
Mm-hmm.
The rides we used to take, I don't know, I suppose they were Sunday afternoon. Remember, Dad would drive and as I don't remember even where we went, but I remember we'd go for a ride and often stop for an ice cream cone on the way home.
Well, now, see,
At Henderson's.
you're the, what, 5th that I've talked to, or the 6th, and you're the first one to remember that, so.
Is that right? So. Well, and see, maybe, although that came out in one of the written things, something about rides that the older family took.
Mm-hmm.
But I can remember that it seems to me was a fairly usual kind of thing for us to do. And of course rides to the community concerts in Billings. Imagine taking that many kids that distance for those concerts and then driving home that night. You know, who in the world would mother? But
let's go back to an earlier time, though. What do you know, or what do you think you know, about Dad's education, for instance?
nothing, except Weber. What Mary Wilson has told me about Weber Academy.
What has she told you?
And she talks about how wonderful it was when the Taggart brothers came, because here were these 3 handsome, wonderful boys who came in, and they all came together, and they all sang so beautifully, and she remembers all of the different people who sang bass with them. And talked about how everyone knew that Lloyd would not be asking them for dates because he had a sweetheart. And if he was at a dance and his sweetheart was at the dance with him, they knew that he wouldn't dance with them because he only danced with his sweetheart. And of course she also tells about when Uncle Scott, they went steady, Mary and Uncle Scott. They were nearly, if it hadn't been for Judge Wilson coming along just as he did, she probably would have married Uncle Scott. And he asked her to a dance once. I didn't realize, but Uncle Scott didn't dance at all. Can you imagine that? It doesn't
Mm.
seem right. But he invited her to go to the dance, and then Uncle Bruce went with them, and Uncle Bruce danced with her all night as a kind of a surrogate date, which I thought was pretty thoughtful.
Mhm.
But the Taggart brothers really made cut a wide swath at Weaver Academy, but that really is all I know.
Mhm.
I didn't realize Weaver evidently was more of a high school than
Like the Bighorn Academy was.
Uh-huh. And the three of them all came down at the same time. But see, what Dad was in the middle, wasn't he? Of those three, Uncle Bruce,
I believe so.
Uncle Scott,
I'm not sure.
and what Uncle Bruce and Dad did while Uncle Scott caught up with them, whether they had grades in their elementary school or anything, I don't have any idea.
Mhm.
And Mother, see, was down here during a part of that time, and I don't know anything about that either. I understand she studied under, there's a reading group here now. I don't remember what the name of it is, I have to look it up. But the Maud Babcock reading group, I think it was. And evidently this was a teacher who taught people to read and to do readings as Mother did.
Mhm.
And I didn't realize, but she did study with Maud, I think it's Maud Babcock. And she was here part of the time that Dad was at Weaver, because she would go down to Weaver for dances and stuff.
Now, when you say
Or,
here, you
in
mean
Salt Lake
City?
I think so, but I don't know anything more than that.
Mhm.
Just the impression, because she surely didn't come from Cali to go to the dances. But I really don't know anything about their education.
You haven't ever heard anybody speak of what they studied?
No. Mother, I always assumed, studied English and
And literature?
literature. But she must have had a good background in humanities. Or Grandma Welch surely must have, because the older kids surely got a background in art, and we surely, it's not really normal that people who grew up when we did would have as much
Mhm.
of a music and art background as we all
Enriched
enriched.
home life.
Yes.
Do you know how your mother came to know the piano?
No, I understand that she was really very good when she was married, but then didn't have time to practice. What with one thing and another.
Mhm.
But I can see her sitting at the piano very, very rarely when we grew up. I think she just didn't bother with it, but she sure had a touch like none other. Just kind of,
As Harriet said, a March time
yeah.
approach. Do you know if your father knew any musical instruments?
Not that I know of.
Okay. I asked that because Harriet thinks that they played when at Weber, that he played in some kind of a music group.
Hmm.
She's the only one who's mentioned
Yeah.
that. Mhm.
I heard a couple, an absolutely wonderful couple here in Salt Lake, who were somewhat younger than Mother and Dad, but not a lot. And he played in a dance band that toured, played everywhere all over the Wasatch Front. And he remembered the Taggart brothers.
Did he?
And the two of them are still singing, and she plays the piano, and they just,
Mhm.
oh, they're wonderful. But he remembered. But he didn't speak of them as having played, but more as singers.
Do you remember hearing your dad or your mother talk about their early courtship?
Heavens no. One time, when we lived in Old Greenwich, Dad opened up and talked as I'd never heard him any other time. And of course we didn't have a recorder. And of course I thought I'd remember it all, but naturally I don't.
Mm-hmm.
But he talked more about their early years than I've ever known him to. Regrets.
Mm-hmm. Of course. And here we are,
Yeah.
attempting to do something that won't, so we won't one day say, or maybe our children say the same kind of regret. Okay. What is your understanding of how your dad proceeded from the time he left Weber Academy, in terms of making a living and so forth?
I never have been very clear on that. My understanding was that that when they were first married, they had a homestead. I've never known where that was or anything. But then, as I understood it, he went into business with Uncle Charles, who had already started the construction business, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And Dad was the one who wanted